Hello, I'm going to share with you something very exciting. A research study that shows that astrology works. And by works, I mean that there's a simple and direct and measurable connection between what's going on in the sky and the behavior and personality of people. That's a controversial statement, to put it mildly, and even controversial among astrologers. So I have here at the bottom, wow, what a claim. Let me show you the study. I think this is very exciting. The study begins way back around 2006 and has continued up until now. What hasn't been continuous. We've revisited it twice. It was revisited in 2014, and I looked at it again yesterday. I'm making this on September 2nd, 2020. So on September 1st, I looked at the data again and I reanalyzed it, and I was just like, wow, this is an amazing study, the most amazing research I've ever seen in astrology. So let me tell you the story and let me tell you the results of this research. So it starts back around 2006 with Professor David Fink. He's the chair of a psychology department, a small college up in Vermont called Johnson State College. So at the time, he's teaching there and he's the chair of the department. And he's interested in the Gauquelin research. The Gauquelin research is the most cited research in astrology, quantitative kind of research. And the Gauquelins came up with this idea of plus zones, that there's certain parts of the sky that are strong. And what Professor Fink wanted to see is if a person is born with Saturn in a Gauquelin plus zone, it would mean that Saturn is strong and the qualities of Saturn would be strong. And in astrology, Saturn is more introverted than Jupiter. So if Jupiter is in one of those plus zones, Jupiter is strong and you would be more outgoing. Wow. So he gives this test to student after student after student in the classes he's teaching over several years, and he collects 944 exam tests, these questionnaires, and gets their score for how relatively introverted to extroverted each person is. So now all we have to do is some kind of statistical test to compare what's going on in the sky with what is to these introversion extroversion scores. Now, I am interested in looking at vibrational astrology because that's what I do. If you're a Vedic astrologer, you'd want to look at Vedic astrology things. And so I looked at it in 2010 for certain vibrational astrology things. I came back to it in 2014 for other things, and I looked at it again yesterday. And I want to show you what we found at each level of looking at this data. Now, when we did the original study in 2010, we also got a stroke of good luck. And the good luck is that I was a student at the University of Florida getting a master's degree in research and evaluation methods, and I needed to do some independent studies. And one of my independent studies was the analysis of this data. So the research method, the statistical analysis, was reviewed, it was analyzed and criticized by experts in the field, professors who publish in very prestigious academic journals. So the quality of the study is excellent. Now let me show you the paper that came out in 2010. And by the way, again, I want to mention, we learned some things after 2010. I'm just taking you through the history of this. So over here, here's the article. Let me show you how to get to it. Is if you go to astrosoftware.com, go to this articles and videos menu item, click on articles, and you'll see number 24, 26, and 27 are articles on this research data. And number 26, this one, I'll click on it, is the paper that I submitted in 2010 and that was supervised by two professors who are active professors publishing in prestigious journals. Okay, So I'm giving you some of the history and some of the background to this study, and soon I will tell you exactly what we looked at and exactly what we found. Okay, next slide. Here's what I looked at in vibrational astrology. In vibrational astrology, we have this idea that you divide the circle into any number. If you divide the circle into 7 equal pieces, and planets are 1/7 or 2/7 or 3/7 of a circle from each other, they make those planets operate in a very quiet, introverted way. So just like Professor Fink, I figured the planet Saturn. If Saturn is in a 7 vibration aspect with another planet, when you're born, you will be more introverted. That's my theory. And you can also double the number 7. You can divide the circle into 14, 28, 56, and these would also lead to introversion. Now, in this tutorial video, I'm not going to get into all the technical details of what these vibrations are. I have hundreds of videos that are available, and you can watch those to learn about this. And we have online classes and all kinds of resources. What I want to focus on here is what we found in this research. And the 11 vibration is very restless and moving, and Jupiter in 11 vibration, or multiples of 11, like 22, 44, 88, I would think would lead to an extroversion. Now, what's exciting about this research is that even if we get negative results, we learn something. And this is why we do research. We learn something. We learn that it's not maybe as simple as we thought it was. You can't just, look at 2 planets in 11 vibration and expect to see something within the complexity of people's lives and how they were brought up and so many things that can be affecting them. We know, for example, psychologists know that the older you are, the more introverted you are. So they give this personality assessment test to people, and over and over and over again, very easy to confirm, the older a person is, the more introverted they are. So there's more than the astrology. And would the astrology and the 1 or 2 things we pick out astrologically, if that could relate in any way at all, even mildly, with how introverted you are or extroverted, how would be like amazing, mind-boggling that that it could happen. And that's what we found. We found the connection. Now the Galcoin sectors, when we evaluate this, doing the statistical test, they showed a slight positive correlation, indicating yes, it looks like the Galcoin sectors might be important, and Saturn in a Galcoin plus zone might make you more introverted, and Jupiter might make you a little more extroverted. There's a slight, mild support in the findings we have. If you can read the paper, I showed you how to read it, where it is on our website. You can read all the details of it. But I'm just summarizing the bottom line. The vibrational astrology, wow, it's through the roof. The support was extremely strong, and I'll show you exactly what we found. So to summarize, why, of all the research studies I'm familiar with, this one is the one that gets my attention the most. Maybe I'm biased because I'm one of the people involved in the research, but why this research is so exciting to me? Number one, I've got these asterisks here. First asterisk, a general expectation was tested. We did not go into the data and say, do like a data mining thing with no assumptions and just say what correlates with extroversion. You can get thousands of things that happen to correlate in this data. No, we went in with a theory. I went in with vibrational astrology theory, and I said this is what should happen. Saturn in 7 vibration for introversion. Jupiter in 11 vibration for extroversion. Now I didn't specify, would the Saturn in 7 vibration go 7, 14, 28, 56 and stop there? Would 7 be stronger than 14? I didn't specify the hypothesis extremely strictly. Why didn't I? because research happens in an incremental way. You start off with general things and you get more and more specific. So I wanted to see if I'm on the right track. I found out that we are on the right track, and what we would do next would be to collect more data, have a very strict hypothesis, exactly what vibrations we're going to look at, and see if we get the strong correlation again. Okay, so we went in with queer ideas. Now, this is so important because people are publishing research in astrology saying I found something and it's just exploratory research with almost no assumptions and no theory, and that's not really impressive. It's a good thing to do. It's an early stage of exploratory research. We need early stages. You don't get to the later stage unless you do the early stage. But we have to be honest about what we're doing. This research is a later stage, almost to the point of a rigorous hypothesis test. So research often starts with exploratory research and some guessing and then gets more and more specific. Okay, so I hope that wasn't too nerdy, and you could appreciate that. Okay, the other thing is the test is a very good one. It's used by psychologists. It's been evaluated for its validity and reliability, etc. So it's a good test, professionally done test. Um, Third thing I have up here, the subjects, the people, the students taking this test to see how introverted or extroverted their scores are, they have no way to anticipate the vibrational astrology analysis. They have no way of knowing if they have Sun and Jupiter in 44 vibration. They might know what their sun sign is. They might know what their moon sign or rising sign is. And if we test for rising sign, you can get confirmation bias because some of the students might know that they have Sagittarius rising and that that's extroverted. And they might say, gee, I'm extroverted, because you can just think of extroversion in a lot of different ways. You get confirmation bias. Not a problem in this study. Number 4, and probably the one that we think of right away, the correlation is excellent. Excuse me, excellent. It's very, very strong. There's what we call p-values, probability values, and we analyze the data in a few different ways, and they are 1 in 1,000 or less. So the relationship is there. And last reason why I love this study is it can be replicated. You could give this test again to another group of people and confirm whether this is really there or not. Now, this particular test does cost money. You have to buy it, and so there is some things involved. Maybe there's alternative tests that are free, but anyway, it can be replicated. One of the problems with the Gauquelin research is there are only so many super famous people in the world, and it's hard to get their birth times. So here we're not dependent on very certain specific famous people, special celebrities. This can be given to anybody and analyzed. So what do we need to do from here in the future would be to replicate the study and come in with a very strict hypothesis test. Okay, now p-values. You've probably heard about p-values, 0.05, 0.01, etc. This is the probability you would get the results. There's a more technically accurate way of saying it, but that's good enough for now. Now, if you're doing a strict hypothesis test, which means you've specified exactly, am I going to look at 28 vibration and 56? I said I'm going to look at them. I didn't say, this is the absolute perfect formula. I should have, I could have said, I'm expecting Saturn in these vibrations. I could have written it out, but the way this game is played, if you don't write it out ahead of time, it's not considered to be a strict hypothesis test. I had an idea of what I wanted, but I didn't write out my expectations beforehand. Now, this is a general hypothesis test because I didn't specify every detail of what I expected beforehand. And in a general hypothesis test, I haven't, not a strict one where I specify exactly every detail of what I'm expecting, we want a really great p-value. I want at least zero point zero 0.01, preferably 0.001. So we have stricter criteria if you don't have a strict hypothesis. That's common sense. This is how it works. Um, and then there's also this issue of effect sizes. And effect sizes are more important than p-values overall. And when you get p-values of the kind we got, 0.001 or less, it means you have a strong effect size as well. And from a scientific viewpoint, what we found in this research is very impressive. And it's the scientific part of this that we're most interested in. In other words, by scientific, I mean this. Does Saturn in 7 vibration correlate with being introverted? Does Jupiter in 11 vibration correlate with being extroverted? Results of the research, very, very, very strong indication that the answer is yes. Now, can you apply this in the real world to pick out the people that will be extroverted and introverted? That's the application of the finding. But what I'm interested in right now is the finding itself. Then later we can think about application. So I'm not thinking about application right now. I'm just thinking about whether it's there or not. And this research indicates that we need to we need to replicate this study and see if this is true, because this it could very well be a breakthrough in the understanding of human beings, of psychology, of everything, and astrology, that this stuff really works. Okay, now one little aside before I show you the exact research procedure and the results. One little side thing. If this research is as exciting as I say it is, if it's so groundbreaking and pioneering and potentially changes our whole understanding of astrology and psychology and how the world works, it's an earth-shaking discovery, why haven't you heard about it before? Okay, well, I don't know, but here's some possible reasons. Number one, it's the field of astrology. And so number one, many astrologers may not understand how research methods work. And there's a lot of evidence that astrologers are not particularly well trained in research methods, because when someone publishes a book that's purely exploratory research and isn't nearly as important and compelling and convincing as a study like this, some astrologers get excited about it. Some astrologers think that if you haven't, quote, proven something, it doesn't mean anything. So it might be a lack of appreciation of how research is done, might be an issue. I think it probably is. Number two, I did not publish this in an astrological journal. And I did not get very much peer review, except I got review from the professors at the university. But I was working outside of the astrological community. And I just put the article on our website. I showed you where I put it. And in 2014, I came back and analyzed the data some more, and I made a video about it. Now that video has nearly 3,000 views. Let me show you the video. It's this one, Jupiter, the 11th harmonic, and extroversion. So as of today, 2,958 views, published on June 9, 2014. So you can go to YouTube, type in Jupiter, the 11th harmonic, and extroversion. You could put my name after it if you want. You'll come up with it. And this was the study on Jupiter. So what happened is in 2010, I looked at Saturn in 7 vibration. In 2014, I was doing some charts in classes that I'm teaching of highly extroverted people with Jupiter in 11 vibration. I'm looking at some politicians, very extroverted with Jupiter, making aspects in 11 vibration, and I decided to look at this data, and it was confirmed. And then yesterday, on September 1st, 2020, I put this all together and looked at a few other things, and to summarize and to see how good is this research, and coming back to it years later is, wow, really exciting what we found. Okay. Now here's an interesting thing. Another reason why maybe you haven't heard of this research before. Number three, When I did this research in 2010, I told colleagues about it, other astrology researchers, and several astrology researchers told me that the model that I use, vibrational astrology, does not have the thousands of years of heritage. It doesn't have the long history of other ideas in astrology, and therefore it's a new idea, and it doesn't it doesn't have all of that evidence for it. So if you got a good research result, and I did, good chance it was just luck. So wow, the same kind of criticism you get from cynics, that even though the results are very good, it's really hard for them to believe that these minor aspects and all of these fine vibrations could be that important. So they're very, very skeptical and think maybe it was a 1 in a million luck. You need to do this over and over again before I get excited about it. So, theory has a big effect on what we expect, could be possible. So even though I and other vibrational astrologers find that this is what we expect, we found what we expected, they're not that impressed by it. My response to them is simply, well, I better just do this vibrational astrology on my own and with other vibrational astrologers, because they're just not that open to it. Okay, and another factor that could be related to number three is that if these vibrational astrology ideas work so well, people could perceive it as a competition to what they've been doing, like they've now got to learn this new system. I don't know. I don't know why, but it has not received huge amounts of attention. Now, so the general hypothesis, I explained Jupiter in 11 vibe, Saturn in 7 vibe. Multiples have a similar effect as part of our theory, and this was the general expectation. And here's the specific formula. Um, I made this formula in the Sirius 3.0 software. I think you can do this as well in earlier versions of Sirius and in the Kepler software. I put in Sun and Saturn in multiples of 7. And I added in 2014 Sun Jupiter and Mars Jupiter in 11 vibe. And here it is. So when you go into the Sirius software and you go into the customizing the Astro signature, I could walk you through how you get there. I don't think I'll show you real quickly. It's just very, very quickly. If I go over here to research and I go to Astro signature, I'm just going to show you this very quickly. And then I already made this Astro signature. I called it introversion, extroversion. And to create it, you would click on New to create it. After you create it, you can click on Customize. And there it is. So this, I just captured the screen, and you see it here. And I enlarged it so you could read it a little more easily. And this is what predicts, we could say, or what correlates, whatever word you want to do, how introverted or extroverted you are, based only on the time you're born. If you think about it, it's a wild idea that you were born in a certain moment and the planets were configured in a certain way, so therefore you're more extroverted when you're an adult. Wow. And here they are, things that most astrologers would never think of. The first line says Sun and Jupiter in harmonic. You can use the word harmonic or vibration. An 11 vibration. We use a 16-degree orb in the harmonic chart. Don't worry about that. I gave it 50 points. So 11, 22, 48, 88, and 176. When I tested 176, it inclined to extroversion, so I left it in the formula. That's 11 times 2, 4, 8, 16. 176 equals 11 times 16. And 11 times 11 correlates with extroversion. Then I did the same exact thing for Mars Jupiter. Sun Jupiter, Mars Jupiter, same exact vibrations, same orb, same strength. You got it? It's very important to have a simple formula. You can't, for example, jump over 44. Say 11, 22, 88. No, don't, don't do that, because it's theoretically inconsistent. The idea is not to just find random things that work. You want to find something that's theoretically makes sense. And so we're saying you take 11 and you can keep doubling it up to some number or multiply it by itself, which is a standard idea in vibrational astrology. And Sun is extremely important with Jupiter. Mars, in some ways, is similar to Sun. It's moving. It wants to move. It wants to get things done. And in 11 vibe, we find that it doesn't sit still. So we put that in there. Then here's the 7 vibe. 7, 14, 28, 56. And then we also put in 7 times 7 and gave it minus 20 points. The negative means introverted. So if you get positive score, you're extroverted. If you get a negative score, you're introverted, right? And and your final score will be the balance of whatever these aspects are. And the stronger the aspect, the smaller the orb, the more points you get. You get a maximum of 50 points for extroversion. Now we found, and I didn't necessarily expect this, that the 11 vibe, this Jupiter 11 vibe stuff, inclines to extroversion very strongly. The Saturn 7 vibe was a little more subtle. It does correlate with introversion, but not as conspicuously. And that's why we gave it fewer points. We didn't give it minus 50, we gave it minus 20, because that's what the results showed us. And thinking about it, it makes sense, because 7 vibe is kind of subtle. People are kind of quiet. I mean, they are quiet, but it's not as conspicuous as when somebody has Sun, Jupiter, and 11. Their behavior is more obviously easier to see. I mean, they're moving and running around. People sit still. I don't know how to explain it. It's more conspicuous. I mean, as a practicing vibrational astrologer, it does make sense. And then when I was looking at this data in 2014, I looked at planets and houses, and I happened to notice that when Jupiter was up at the top of the chart, I was using equal houses. So when Jupiter was up near the 10th, the ninth or 10th houses, also the 8th and 11th, 8, 9, 10, 11 up at the top, people were extroverted, which we expect. And in vibrational astrology, we also accept, we use that idea as well. So I threw that in there and gave it the 50 points. That's what I did yesterday in 2020, is I analyzed each of these separately to see exactly what the correlations were, and I added this in just to see what happens. Okay, so these are things that we tested. Now, as I mentioned, I'll repeat this, very, very important, is the hypothesis must be as simple and as consistent as possible and still get a good p-value. It doesn't need to be 100% simple, but fairly simple. Like I gave 50 points to all of these aspects. Now maybe the 11 is stronger than 22 or 44. Maybe the 88 came out stronger, but I don't have any theoretical expectation for this. I'm just going to keep it simple. Later on you can refine it, but at this stage of research you don't want to just match what you found, and make that your formula. Like if I find 88 vibration was the most extroverted, if I just analyze 88 vibration, I get the greatest extroverts. That's called cheating. You can always find something that works, but I'm making a simple formula with a simple idea behind it, using the same multiples and the same strength. Later on, we can refine it as we do more studies. At the beginning, keep it simple and consistent, and don't just fit your data to get what you want. There's a compromise there, but for the most part, keep it relatively simple. Now, so what you do is I showed you this. You select the astro signature, you enter the astro signature items. Okay, let me show you how you produce the research. That's you create the astro signature, and then here in this first window, I've selected the introversion extroversion astro signature, you click on correlation right here, a button called correlation. And then you click on import file with scores. And I'll read it to you from the PowerPoint slide here. Click on import file scores, enter these values. The name should be this. There it is. You know, if you can do this yourself, you can pause here and just type all this in. Here's where the starting columns are. And then when you do that, it'll import the data, which I've already done, and here it is. These are the people. We didn't use their names, obviously. We preserved their, their identity. We just called it ID1, ID2. This was the name of the course. Oh, this is the year of the course. I think. Oh, he started collecting this way back in 1989, 86. Oh, maybe he was collecting this data I'm not sure what those numbers are. No, that's the course number. Forget about it. I don't know what these numbers are. It doesn't matter. But this was the number of the course. I think F means female, M means male, whatever. It doesn't matter. But here is the actual score. This first person got a 15, which is a high score, means that person's extroverted. This person has a 5, introverted. 4, very introverted. Those are the scores. And what we want to do is see if something in the astrology will correlate. That the more you have of something, it would make you more extroverted and score higher or score lower. And it's called a Pearson product moment correlation. Is the kind of correlation value we produced. So after you get that, you select the data. You go here to select data, select a category, and it's over here the introversion extroversion scores right here. This is the one we selected right there under medical psychological. So you select the 944 students. We have the data already in the software. We already have their scores in the software. You get all this in the Sirius program. Oh, Kepler I don't think includes the data. But the Sirius software does, and you can run it. It's all in the software, the correlation, everything, the data, the scores, and that's how you do it. And then when you click on Begin Analysis, here is what the results look like. Right up here, this will fill in with the results, and it looks like this. Statistically significant at the 0.001 level, and the correlation, it says 13%. This should really say 0.13. That's what we call the Pearson product moment correlation coefficient. It's the correlation coefficient is 0.13, which is not actually that strong in terms of being able to apply this, but it still is less than 1 in 1,000 probability. So from a scientific viewpoint, it's showing the likelihood of getting this is less than 1 in 1,000. Okay. Now in the paper that I wrote in 2010, I exported these results into a file, used statistical software like the R software and other statistical software. You can read about it in the paper. And I did a more complex analysis, and I included the age of the people, where I exported how old they are, and included that, and then you get a very, very strong correlation. So if you can combine non-astrological things with astrological things if you save the data in Sirius and then read it into a statistics program. Well, this is all a lot of work, a lot of detail, a lot of perseverance. We did it all, and the results are very exciting. So if you combine the age of the person with the astrology, bottom line is you can predict how extroverted they are even better. So if someone is 60 years old, they're going to be more introverted, and that would adjust the scores and improve the correlation. So there are things besides the astrology. There'll be cultural things and other things that will affect it as well. Maybe there's a difference between males and females. I don't know. You could put that in the formula. Okay. Um, and then you scroll down to the bottom of the results after you click on begin analysis, and it gives you the technical details. Now, in the series software, it analyzes the statistical significance only up to 0.001. That's why it says 0.001. It doesn't go to point three zeros one, just two zeros one. But it tells me the t value is 4.1. The t value determines the probability. And if you look it up, you'll find that the statistical significance when a t-value is over 4 is actually not 1 in 1,000. It's less than 1 in 10,000. So this report only shows me up to 1 in 1,000 because once you're less than 1 in 1,000, you found something. I mean, you don't really need to go worry about it any more than that. But technically, just the actual details, the probability of getting these results was less than 1 in 10,000. Extremely unlikely that I would guess Saturn in 7 vibe makes you introverted, Jupiter in 11 vibe makes you extroverted, and come up with a t value like this. And I mean, it's not going to happen. So this is why I say the results are very, very impressive. So here's where I have this note. T-value of 4.10 indicates the p-value is actually less than 1 in 10,000. And I analyzed just Jupiter alone, just Jupiter in 11 vibe. It gets a correlation coefficient of 0.12, a t-value of 3.7, which is way less than 1 out of 1,000. So just the Jupiter in 11 vibe, that was our strongest indicator. It makes you very extroverted, is what these results indicate. And the Saturn 7 vibe has a correlation coefficient of only 0.03, a much smaller t-value, and not significant. The Saturn in 7 only slightly leads to introversion, is what this suggests. When you combine together Jupiter and Saturn, the t-value goes up from 3.7 to 3.8. In other words, by adding the Saturn 7 vibe, it improves the result a little bit. So there's some suggestion here that Saturn in 7 vibe, it was in my hypothesis, so I included it in the results. It's not that dramatic, but it did improve my results a little bit. It raised the t-score. The higher the t-score, the lower the probability you would get these results by chance. Jupiter in houses 8 through 11 had a correlation of 0.06, which is okay. A t-value of 1.74, which is not quite at the 0.05 level. It's the Jupiter in 11 vibe that really, really predicts extroversion. But if I combine Saturn in 7 vibe, Jupiter in houses 8 through 11 with the Jupiter in 11 vibe, then my T goes all the way up to 4.1. So the bottom line is Jupiter in 11 vibe makes you extroverted. Very, very, very strong indication that that's true, and not quite as strong, but also suggested Saturn in 7 vibe. It looks like it may also lead to introversion, and Jupiter in those top houses may also lead to extroversion. So those are the results. They are, bottom line, they are impressive. When you go in with an idea of what you're looking for, that's based on your theory, and you get results like this, it's very strong indication you're on the right track. So, we need to just do this research. My last paragraph here. If there was a college that granted degrees in research astrology or an astrology research institute, this promising research could be pursued. There is a potential to pioneer a new technology. Because if this research could be replicated, we've opened a whole new field of inquiry, of measurable results of planetary configurations with human behavior. It'd be a huge breakthrough. This kind of breakthrough research, pioneering research, right now, has not yet caught the attention of enough investors or people interested to take the risk. All research is a risk to see if it could possibly lead to a dynamic breakthrough. And it's falling in between the astrologers who have other ideas about how astrology should work and the non-astrologers who are skeptical that anything would work in astrology. Okay, this is my last slide just to mention that I've made two videos about the Gauquelin research, which indicate that there is some indication that the Gauquelin plus zones, when we've in this research as well, that they actually do work, very mild, not as dramatic and powerful as the vibrational astrology effects. The vibrational astrology effects are giving much bigger effect sizes, much stronger correlation values, much more easily replicated. And that's why they open the door to a new potential world for astrology. Um, and also, I just want to mention, if you're familiar with vibrational astrology, you know we've done research on accidents, on musical talent, athletic talent. We're going to have another paper presented on accident research at the 2021 Vibrational Astrology Conference, the annual conference we have. Thaddeus Fenner, who's a vibrational astrologer, will be presenting the results of his research on accidents, continuing earlier research showing that it looks like we can predict accidents with these vibrational patterns. Last thing I want to say, real research requires a lot of time and perseverance. And with the limited resources that we have at this time, everybody's busy with their lives. I'm a software developer. I can't spend all day doing this stuff. But just carving out little bits of time and meeting periodically together, we are making fantastic progress, surprisingly great progress with the little amount of time and resources that we have. So the research has been very successful so far. Well, I wanted to share that with you. I had just reanalyzed the data yesterday, combining all those things and looking at it. And I'm looking at it thinking, oh my gosh, this is amazing. This is so exciting. And I wanted to share with you what I saw there. So thank you very much for listening, my friends. God bless. Namaste.